Hello readers, and welcome back to Tell Between Tales. Today we are going to be discussing the Letters of Enchantment series, or rather duology, by Rebecca Ross, which contains the Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. These books conclude the entirety of the story. It is a duology, and Divine Rivals won the Goodreads Choice Award for 2023. It is classified as a romantasy series, as the relationship is the primary focus of the novel and not just a background side story. So Divine Rivals, I got this book off of Kindle, so it is really kind of fun because my new Kindle cover has irises on it, and the protagonist of our story, the main point of view, her name is Iris Winnow. And the story begins at the train station where Iris is seeing her brother Forrest off to war. He has been inspired by Enva, which is the goddess of their city oath, to go fight the war against Dacker, which is on the outside the town, and it seems very, very far away from the people who are living in the city. And Enva has been inspiring a lot of the people of the town, or rather a lot of people of the city, to go and fight the war, because the people in the city are not really interested in fighting a war that feels like it's so far away. And so Enva is the goddess of music, and she has been playing her stringed instruments to inspire people to go help this war effort against this god Dacker. The city has outlawed all string instrument playing, all music, in order to try to prevent Enva's magic from bringing more people out of the city and off to the war. But we start with Iris saying goodbye to her brother as he is leaving for the front to go fight this war. Now, it was believed previously that Dacker was dead. Everyone thought that all the gods had been killed or were sleeping, and so it was quite a surprise when he woke up and started exacting vengeance on the people in the towns and in the cities where he woke up, and he's calling Enva to come and fight him. And so we know that there is something going on between these two gods, Enva and Dacker, hence the name Divine Rivals. And we don't quite know what that is, though, at the beginning of the book. It takes a while for that whole backstory to come out and be explained. But it is explained. And after our opening scene, the book jumps forward quite a few months, and we see Iris is now working at one of the big newspaper establishments in the city. It's called the Gazette, and she is trying to win a position as columnist. She's trying to earn a full-time position. And the way that she does this is she is competing against Roman Kit, who is also trying to earn a full-time position of columnist. And the editor is only going to pick one of these two. And so they have been working for a while, and they have been putting out articles, and the editor is eventually going to pick one of these two. Now, Iris is from more of the poor side of town, and she had to drop out of school because her mother has spiraled down into this drunken, depressive state since Forrest left, and she's the only one that is really bringing in any money to support the family, to pay the electric bills, to buy the food. And so she is desperate to get this position. And so she is really, really giving it her all, but she still is very, very irritated by Roman. She's irritated by how good of a writer he is, but also by, how she kind of feels a little bit drawn to him because he's, of course, super handsome and he's wealthy. And she can kind of see there's a rivalry forming. There is a rivalry between the two because they're both competing for the same columnist position. However, their priorities and their needs are very different. We do get several chapters, point of view chapters from Roman's side as well. So we do get to explore what is going on with him and his family dynamics and the pressures that are being placed on him, and how his family wants him to follow a certain path, but he is not sure if he wants to follow that path. And so we do get a lot of viewpoints from his side as well, which I also really appreciated. So Iris has been coping with everything that has been going on over the last several months by writing. Writing is her comfort, her talent. She's very, very good at it. And they use typewriters, and she has been typing on her typewriter to her brother Forrest. And she's been sliding these letters under her wardrobe, and she kind of just did the first one on a whim, and she was very surprised when it disappeared. And so the magic in this whole universe, in this world, is very much a soft, I wouldn't even call it a magic system. It kind of just is. They talk about how certain buildings are enchanted. Like there's this one shop where she goes into and everything that she can afford brings itself to the front, and everything she can't afford gets pushed to the back. And there's like magic tea shops where your tea never goes cold and things like that. So her typewriter, being able to write these letters and have these letters disappear as she puts them under the wardrobe, it kind of falls into that whole soft magic. We don't really know how it's happening. The whole connection and everything is explained a little bit later with how the magic of her typewriter works. But she is believing, or choosing to believe that, or fantasizing that the letters that she is writing to her brother are somehow finding their way to them through the magic of the world. And after a while, this has been going on for a while, she receives a letter back, and she is very surprised when this happens, and basically finds out that this is not your brother. Says, I am not your brother. And this just completely blows her mind, throws her for a loop. Of course, she's got all the feelings of embarrassment, like, oh my goodness, who is getting my letters? I wrote all this personal stuff to my brother in these. And she kind of figures that, well, let's kind of test the waters here and be careful. And she keeps exchanging letters, basically. And this opens up a correspondence between her and the person who is receiving her letters. And Iris doesn't know who she is writing to, but the person that she is writing to knows that it's her. And this is all explained why that is in the book, but I'm not going to reveal that for you. But then it opens up a very sweet correspondence where each of Iris and her correspondent are able to communicate with each other and talk about a lot of the issues that they have been struggling with, their fears and their problems. And they talk about like putting on armor so that way other people can't get to you and can't see who you really are, to protect yourself from the outside world and to protect yourself from being hurt. And they have these really deep, meaningful conversations with each other. And that was something that I really appreciated in the romance, was that it wasn't just frivolous, is that there was a lot of meaning and real true connection between these two. I really liked how that all played together and built up a good solid foundation for their romance. And then after a little bit more time goes on, there's an inciting incident that just really jolts Iris out of her like day-to-day kind of survival mode, and she decides that she is going to be done with the Gazette, and she ends up going off and being a war correspondent and being shipped off to the front so that she can report on the war. And she's going to go try and basically go find her brother. And so this really pulls in a lot of the war themes and the horrors of war, because she gets to go and she gets to see everything, and she gets to experience time at the front, and she gets to spend time with soldiers who have been injured, and she gets to see how this is affecting the day-to-day lives of the people that are closer to the war. Because back in Oath, back in the city, they are quite removed, and it almost feels like the war isn't even going on, which is why there is such a need for these war correspondents to get the people to really understand and to know that, hey, this is going on. And all of these monstrosities are occurring, and we need more support because this war is coming our way and it will eventually reach us. It will come and get us if we don't do anything about it. And so Iris is trying to write these stories to help get the people to understand what is really going on instead of just turning a blind eye. Now, there are some hints and some talks about, some political maneuvering that is going on in the government and people taking sides, and we suspect this person is really a Dacker supporter instead of like an Enva supporter, and we're supposed to all be fighting for Enva because Dacker is coming to destroy us. And so we do have some of that political subterfuge going on, but that is definitely not the main focus or the main undertones of this book. So if you're looking for something with a lot of political fantasy in it, this is definitely not the book for you. This is going to be much more focused on Iris's personal experiences and, of course, the relationship that she is building with this unknown person that she is writing to, and how that comes together and comes to fruition. And it is a very sweet romantic plot line, not subplot. It is one of the main focuses. But what I really, really liked about this book, one of my favorite things, is how deeply enmeshed these two things are. So the war and the world is not just a backdrop for the romance. They are really connected with the characters driving the plot forward, being super involved in the world and what is going on around them, and then how the mythology of what happened long ago is affecting the present day, and how intertwined all of these stories are. I really thought that Rebecca Ross did a good job of really connecting everything and bringing it all together to make it feel very cohesive and very connected, instead of like separate. Like, here's the romance and then here's just a backdrop. And so that was something that I really, really appreciated, because it definitely felt like it was much more leaning towards the story. The story was really driving the plot line, and the romance was woven throughout. I also liked how there were layers of love stories. So our main love story is going on, but there's also a tragic past love story that is fueling the current events. And so I really liked how Rebecca Ross did this layering of stories, and that kind of goes back to the whole and how everything is enmeshed and everything is connected. This story also has a lot of themes about seizing those little moments when they come, and seizing the happiness when it is presented to us. Even though we are surrounded by greater tragedies and we are surrounded maybe by sorrow and horrible things, we can still find connections. We can still hold on to those happy moments and enjoy those happy moments when they come, because they might not be coming very often, and we need to seize those instead of pushing those away, and how allowing that into our lives, even when so much bad is going on, really helps us to go on and give us purpose and meaning in our lives, and it helps us see clearly and keep our priorities straight as well. So I gave this book 5 stars because of all the things that I mentioned, and I really, really enjoyed reading it. It's a really quick read, and I would recommend this book to anybody who enjoys a good love story that is enmeshed within the world, and the world events are driving the plot forward, and the love story comes along for a ride, and magic that seeps into the world in fun and quirky ways. And I gave this book a 9 out of 10 for language, mostly because I read this first installment a little while ago, and like by a while ago I mean like 5 months ago. And I honestly can't remember what all the language was like, but I'm pretty sure if there was any language at all. It was very minimal, and so I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. So it is a great read. And now that brings us to the conclusion of Divine Rivals, Ruthless Vows. All right, here we go. So to start off, I gave Ruthless Vows a 3 out of 5 stars. To be honest, I was really disappointed in this second novel. And I found myself much more enjoying the events around our love story rather than our main characters themselves. I was very interested in the war and what was happening, and Enva and Dacker, and we get a lot more backstory with them, and I really enjoyed all of that, the mythology and what was going on with pretty much everybody else. And we still follow Iris, and we do get a few chapters from the love interest as well. And the reason why it didn't work for me is because I just felt like the relationship and the romance, like it devolved. The quality of their romance and the way things were written, just the writing was weird. And if that makes sense, like, and it was the way that things were described. I guess it's just because there was so much yearning. I'm yearning. I'm tired of reading about you yearning. And so part of the reason why I disliked this book more than, well, I mean, I loved the first one. I mean, I still give it 3 out of 5 stars because I really like the story building. But it uses a plot device that I don't really like. And I admit that is on me. This is just one of my, it uses a trope that I really don't enjoy in a lot of my reading. And it uses that really to spur and launch most of the story for the second book, and really to get back into a position where we're writing more letters. like we did the whole letter writing in the first one, and it worked well, and I loved it. And I guess I was just disappointed that that part didn't evolve and become, like, there was so much potential. It could have become something really great, and what we got was just kind of more of the same, but in a much, like, cheesier way. And so, and I say cheesier way because the writing, like, again, like, it's, and there's so much yearning, and then the way they describe how they're feeling just got really awkward. Like, there's this one scene where Iris is talking about how her heart is, like, bursting through her chest and exposed to the air and, like, just pounding because she's so full of love and she can't contain it. And I'm like, that is the grossest love imagery I've ever read in my life. Like, what is this? Like, your heart is exploding through your chest, beating in the air because you're so full of love, you can't contain it all. Like, I don't know. It was just, and then the love interest also, I felt like his character devolved too. Like, instead of being this unique character with his own drive and his own needs and his own goals, and to be his own person, he completely devolved into just being the love interest. And, like, everything is, I would die for Iris. just like I would die for Riley. And so it really just was disappointing the way that the whole thing devolved. So I get how a character would change a lot of their motivations for someone that they love and would do certain things for a person that they deeply care about. But people are a lot more complicated than a single emotion, and his character was really just boiled down to a single emotion and a single desire, and he became very, very flat as a character. But another thing that I did like about the book, going back to the world building, is that it was definitely a different take on gods and magic. So a lot of times when you read, the gods are attributed, and this comes much from like Greek mythology, like the gods that are attributed like healing are like seen as benevolent gods, whereas like the god of war is seen as antagonistic. And in this one, that's not the way it is. You get to see the several different gods that were around the world, and you know what their powers were. And Dacre's big power is he is the god of healing, but he is also very much so the bad guy and manipulating people. And so that I thought was a very unique take on the whole idea. In conclusion, I think it's good to read this book to finish the duology, because the first book really does leave you on quite, it's not exactly a cliffhanger, but it's very much, you feel kind of nervous. You're like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? This is not good. I don't like the way this book ended. And so you definitely feel like I need to read on. I want to find out what happens next to these characters and how everything comes together in the war and what's going to happen to these people. And so it does a very good job of wrapping all that up, and has a good conclusion. It has a good ending with finishing everything and concluding the story. And so just a few final words. This duology really focuses much more on the power of the people and the people's ability to do good and to change things in the course of the bigger scheme, and the powers of the individual as well, versus like the political powers or the military powers of the world. And I really liked that theme that was thread throughout the duology. And so let me know, if you have read this duology, how you liked the second book. Do you agree with my take on it? Do you completely disagree? Did you love the writing? Did you love the love story? I would be very curious to hear your thoughts on it. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.